Razan Al-Najjar was a Palestinian nursing student and paramedic who was killed by the Israeli Defense Forces while volunteering as a medic during the 2018 Great March of Return. She was martyred on June 1st, 2018. I decided to paint her because I felt it was the least I could do. And here is the video and narration of my painting. I painted it, I started September 18th, 2019, and I painted until about October 5th. And then I had a show in October at the Jerusalem Fun Gallery, and I brought it there. It was actually still wet. I had to take it on the plane with me while it was still slightly wet. That was a challenge. And when I brought it home, I decided it was not finished yet. So I worked on it a little bit more. I have about 7 hours of this video footage of me painting it, but I think I spent about 3 or 4 extra hours on it after that, just touching it up. And sometimes when you think you finish a painting and you put it aside for a while, maybe like a month or two, you come back and you see all these problems with it. So I came back to it, spent about 3 or 4 hours, maybe more. I didn't record the last few hours, I think because I ran out of space on my phone or something. But this is my first video recording of a painting. I used my iPhone and some janky little tripod thing. It's actually not a tripod, it's like a clip-on iPhone holder, which I guess it did the job, but it didn't do a great job. I've seen other painters' setups, they have nice cameras and nice tripods, but I don't have that right now, so this is the best I have. I started out the painting just blocking in the basic light and shadow in one color using burnt umber. It's much easier to start with one shade. Usually you start with a dark shade like burnt umber and just get in the values, the light and the shadow. And once that's down, then you can start adding some flesh tones and some other highlights like I'm doing here. I key all my paintings, and what this means is I use a small amount of one color in every single drop of paint I mix. And the reason I do this is because in the end it really unifies the whole painting and makes the colors all kind of uniform, like they go together. I used dioxazine purple to key this painting, and you can see that in the finished painting along the edges. Obviously in oil painting I'm using gloves because some of the solvents are not exactly the best thing to get on your skin, neither are the paints. So I recommend anybody who is painting in oil to always use gloves. At this point in the painting I'm starting to add some highlights and some midtones, getting some highlights around the eyes, adding some color to the face. I get really detailed in the eyes here, and I end up messing up one eye and eventually painting it over. You'll see that later. That's the great thing about painting. You can just, it's very forgiving. If you mess up, just paint it over, start over. Adding some color to the cheeks here. Some of the colors I used are alizarin crimson, yellow ochre, burnt umber, dioxazine purple, and the background is actually silver oil paint. One trick that one of my teachers taught me is to kind of avoid putting a whole lot of detail in the eyes at first, and at this point I'm about halfway through the painting, so the detail in the eyes is coming out. But the reason you don't want to put too much detail in the eyes at first is because it can be very distracting to you, because you're just constantly looking at the portrait's eyes, and B, if you don't put the eyes in the right place, then you basically wasted a lot of time. So at the beginning I was just kind of blocking in basic shapes, and now I'm going in and adding a lot of detail, messing up a lot, changing things around. At one point I go into the eyes and I add the highlights, and that really it's like the light reflecting off of the iris and sometimes the pupil, and that really gives the painting a lot of life. Like, she starts to look like an actual person when you add the highlights in the eyes. And I'm using a lot of cool tones in the face too. The face is just not all warm. Like in the shadows, I'm using dioxazine purple. Shadows should be cool, and midtones and highlights should be warm. At this point, I think, not quite at this point yet, but I try to avoid using black paint as much as possible. It looks like I'm painting black there, but I'm actually not. It's a mixture of, I think, dioxazine purple, burnt umber, and ultramarine blue. I save the blacks for the really, really dark parts, like the pupils, and sometimes around the shadow underneath the eyelid. Black, like true black and true white, don't really exist that much in real life, because the light always has a color to it. So when you have light shining on to, like, say, a white shirt, like her medic uniform, the light is going to have some kind of color usually, even if it's natural sunlight, because there are dust particles in the air. So I rarely use 100% pure white or 100% pure black, except if there are like really strong highlights or really strong darks. I'm working on the lips here. Got some highlights in there. Again, they're not white. They're kind of skin tone with a little bit of white added. And kind of, there's where I messed up that eye, painted over it, started over. As I said, I like to key it with a certain color, and then I paint the borders of the frame with that color. So as you can see in the lower right border, I painted it dioxazine purple, and that goes around the whole painting. I like to save the fabric and clothing for last, because once I don't feel like I'm actually fully on my way on the painting until I feel like the face is like really looking real. So right now I feel like the face is getting pretty decent. There are still some problems with it, some problems with the value color, but now I'm starting on the fabric of her hijab a little bit and just going back and forth. Adding some more highlights there and some more shadows. You really, when you're painting lips, there's that those place where the corners of the lips, they really indent into the face. They're not, the lips are not flat, they curve around the face, so I really wanted to make sure that those corners of the mouth look realistic. And at this point, I have the angle of the camera and the painting such that the sunlight from outside is picking up the highlights of the solvents on the painting, so that's why it's a little bit hard to see. That stick that you see in the painting, that is very useful because since it's oil, a lot of it is still very wet. And if I try to brace my hand on the actual painting myself, I'll mess up the paint. So that stick helps me brace my hand. And here is the finished painting. I tried to bring in some of the silver paint from the background into her hijab, make it like a soft border. You don't want a hard border. And that's about it. Prints and cards are for sale on my website at katiemiranda.com. Thanks for watching.